So it's episode 2, Real Talk Rhody, and it's so funny with our guest here. First of all, hello to Matty Maggiacomo. Hello.
Well, hello, Bekah. It is so nice to be with you.
I have to tell you a little bit of background. Even before we decided to do the podcast, before Real Housewives of Rhode Island was announced and all of that, let me take you back to a time where, so Matty and I do have some Rhode Island connections because we're from Rhode Island and everyone is connected. I was in a wedding with his sister. It just goes on and on. So anytime Matty and I have interacted, anytime we've interacted, the amount of DMs, if we've reposted each other or in the comments together, the DMs I get from people who are like, how do you know him? It is the funniest thing because it's always without fail. I always get someone fangirling or fanboying over you.
Well, I'm turning red. I'm turning Rhode Island red.
A Rhode Island red. And it's funny because I think a lot of them don't realize that you're from Rhode Island and they know you more from being the Peloton director of fitness.
Isn't that great? Well, actually, I'm going to correct you. I used to be the Peloton director of fitness.
I looked at Wikipedia, and that's Wikipedia.
We must correct ChatGPT there. No, for a while I was. And, actually, before we got on the podcast, I had mentioned, I said, I worked for a startup that, has been starting up for 8 years. And at the very beginning, Bekah, when we didn't become the Peloton, I had that kind of hybrid role where not only was I a tread instructor and a strength instructor, I was also director of fitness. And obviously, remember that little thing called the pandemic? It kind of came about, and Peloton really skyrocketed in popularity. Then they brought in the people that really knew what they were doing. So that is how I was like, okay, I could just focus on being a really amazing tread instructor and strength instructor. And so therefore, that's when the title sort of fell away.
And you are amazing. I think, of course, we're going to get into the Bravo of it all.
Yes,
the
Bravo, the
We're working on it, right? It doesn't roll off the tongue like Roni does.
It does not.
And we don't use an acronym for we don't really say that for any other one. So maybe we won't try to make Rory happen because it sounds like
it's Gilmore Girls, right? Where her name is Rory, and then 30 Rock is one of my favorite shows of all time. The Rural Juror.
Yes.
Are we really going to make this happen and be?
I don't know. We're working on it. I think we're workshopping it. But speaking of Peloton, the pandemic happened, and now everybody has a Peloton.
For sure. And you know what? I have to say, Bekah, I have the best job in the world. I don't know if you know my backstory, but like you, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I was a one person band news reporter, and I realized, oh goodness, this really isn't fulfilling to me. And I pivoted into a job that I help people. And not only that, I'm a storyteller. And not only that, I get to be a pop culture guru just like you. And honestly, this is something that we bond over in our DMs all the time. I have to say, I do a weekly show. I call it my walk and talk, right?
You walk and talk.
And I got to say, I check my sources. I check my TMZ. I check my people. I check Pop Crave. And I check Bekah Berger's Instagram to know what the hell is happening in Hollywood and in the tabloids.
Thank you for saying that. I did not Venmo you to say that. Please let everyone know that there was no cash exchange and that you just said that on your own. Matty, I want to get into also, you recently went to the Tonys. And I want to hear about that experience. Yes. But you know what I love most about the Tonys? The fact that you can have somebody like a George Clooney sitting by and sitting near actual gritty working actors who might have a side hustle in addition to being a full-time actor.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? I've been saying all week, I said, I want to live in a world where beautiful, non-binary, queer Cola Scola beats out George Clooney for a major award. And guess what? They did. It's truly remarkable. I'm such a Broadway nut. I'm such a nerd. That's another thing I really nerd out about on the Peloton platform and just in my everyday life. One of the reasons why, believe me, I love Rhode Island so much.
Yes,
I
you do.
visit as much as I can. My parents are in Smithfield. My sister just recently moved back. As you know, everybody's there. Everybody's there. So I try to get back as much as I possibly can. I also love New York City. I've lived in New York City now, my goodness, for 21 years. But as you said before we started, you can take the Rhode Island out of the boy, but you can't take the boy out of Rhode Island.
Look at the Dunkin' Cup.
I'm sitting drinking my Wicked Lodge, and I talk about Rhode Island so much on the Peloton platform, but I love the culture of New York City, so I always feel connected. And yeah, to go to the Tonys the other night was just such a blast, such a blast. It's culture, baby, it's culture.
It is, and you got to see the Hamilton 10-year reunion. What was that like?
Exhilarating. They were off their feet. They were losing their minds. In fact, and here's another thing, like, not to name drop, but like, I went to the Public Theater last night to go see this fantastic show called Goddess, which will be on Broadway next season for sure. And they have this at the Public Theater, they have a restaurant upstairs called the Library Bar. And I walk in and there's Lin-Manuel and there's Philippa Sue just sitting there hanging out. And actually, here's a great Rhode Island connection. Oscar Eustace, who used to be creative director at Trinity Repertory. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, like when we were in high school. He's been the creative director of the Public Theater for now that long. So like there's a Rhode Island connection through the Public Theater as well. Trinity
started at Trinity and then ended up there. Did you go up to Lin-Manuel?
I gave him a wave. I'm like, I say hi to him enough. I think he thinks I'm following him around places because we end up
takes your classes.
Like, no, he does. He's actually Lynn is very close with Robin Artzon, who is our actual director of fitness, our VP of fitness. And so Lynn has always been very, very kind to us.
Matty, have you found that? Have you interacted with celebs who actually do take the classes and they say, Matty, I take your class?
It's wild. It's such a gas. Because Bekah, here's the thing. It's like this relationship that I get to have on Peloton is very different than like kind of the relationship you would have with maybe your favorite talk show host, because that's like a very passive thing, right? And I don't know if you've ever taken my classes, but like they can be hard. They range. But like it is the most captive audience, right? You may watch a morning show or a talk show and you're doing something else. Maybe you're walking the dog, maybe you're cooking, but on Peloton, you're just kind of with me. And if you're doing something else, you're distracted, you're not doing it right. And so this relationship that I have with the members, and believe me, it's mostly moms. I index pretty high
That's your demo.
In the mom demo. And in turn, they learn a lot about me and I learn a lot about them. I kind of know how they tick. Because I love them. And I always think about like my early roots in Rhode Island, whether it was like going to the gym with my mom in Smithfield. She used to go to like Gold's Gym in Smithfield by Bryant University over there. So I don't think it's not there anymore. I think it's something else.
People use it as directions now. Where the Gold's Gym used to be.
Totally. Where Gold's Gym used to be, or after we would go, after she'd finish her aerobics class, we'd go to Such a Bagel in Smithfield, right on Route 44. And we'd go like hang out and she'd chat with the girls and gossip with the girls. And I would sit there and I would listen. And in turn, I became one of them.
It was inevitable. So is it like a HIPAA thing where you can't say the celebs who take your classes, or can you admit to those who have come up to you and said, Matty, I can't go a day without taking your class?
I don't think HIPAA applies. I've gotten some very like kind shout outs from, again, the Mel Robbins of it all. The fact that like the first time I ever met Mel Robbins 4 years ago, I said, oh my God, Mel, I need to introduce myself. And she said, you don't have to introduce yourself. I know who you are.
How great did that feel?
What? And then, of course, me being such a big Broadway nerd, when I go see a show and then I get a message back from one of the lead actresses, or I love your classes. I love all your Broadway classes. It's it's kind of an awesome thing. It's a lot of fun. Exciting.
All right, we got to talk about Real Housewives of Rhode Island.
Right.
Because one thing about you and me, Matty, well, one thing is that we love two things. We love Bravo and we love Rhode Island.
For sure.
So the fact that two of our worlds are coming together as one, did you find it, like I talked about this in episode 1, I found it so, and I still find it so hard to wrap my head around.
I was in disbelief. So, as evidenced by the DMs and the messages that you get, I'm sure you have a lot of folks and listeners who are like, "Oh my God, Bekah, did you hear this?" And but right, so and you kind of go through them, and you're like, "Okay, no, this is credible. This is incredible." And so in the early stages of it, folks were like, Real Housewives of Rhode Island. I said, no, y'all can take a walk. There are so many other interesting places, because I guess in my head, I was under the impression that, it would have been like they're trying to create something out of Gilded Age Newport or this very waspy type culture, which actually doesn't exist anymore. I was trying to tell people, I was like, the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers, they don't summer there anymore. You do know that most of the mansions are just dusty museums at this point, or wedding venues, right?
Yes.
It's like it's not a thing. And then when it became apparent that Andy Cohen and the production companies were really looking for this very Italian American kind of answer to Real Housewives of New Jersey, I said, they're looking for a mess.
First of all, I want to say this. It feels so good to be able to talk about it out loud. It's not like I've ever been under an NDA during this entire time, but
sure.
Matty, you lived in Rhode Island long enough to know, and I don't know if your parents were like this, specifically your mom, if she was like my mom, in that we're trained to, yes, love gossip, but we're also trained to not say names loud. So, like, I'll give you an example. My dad gets so mad at my mom because we'll be inside of our house and she'll be talking about people, but when names come up, she starts to talk really softly. And my dad says, "What are you doing? Like, we're in our house. Nobody can hear you. We're not talking, the windows are not open. We're not talking about the neighbors." So I have that sort of like always with me as like a dark passenger, if you will, to quote Dexter. And so it feels nice to be able to actually talk about Real Housewives of Rhode Island. I'm still so hesitant to say actual possible cast members.
Okay, we're not going there then, huh?
The only thing because I want to wait for Bravo to say,
okay, all right, we're not ready.
Here's our ladies.
We're not ready.
We're going to walk on the stage. I mean, I think we all pretty much know who it is. And I want to take it back and walk it back to what you said about the Newport society, because I think immediately that when you hear Real Housewives, that's sort of what we were originally thinking. But to your point, I think that those women, they're not going to let a camera crew in that house or mansion or whatever it is, second home.
No, even the murmurings on the nether regions of the internet, like we're already kind of finding out which local Rhode Island businesses are not going to allow cameras and are careful. They want to protect, whether it be a country club or a beach club.
Yes.
They want to protect the people that are there. And it's so funny that you say this, like what your parents do with that little sotto voce. It's like how my parents would be like, he's gay. They're gay. And so, but it's very funny. And because even with some of these names, Rhode Island, hey, you got to love it. But there are a lot of mom and pop shops in Rhode Island, one of the few states where like mom and pop shops still really exist. Like my father, Maggiacomo Insurance, I bet you, some of these people are clients or customers, right?
Yeah.
So there's a Maggiacomo Insurance Club
yes.
plug.
Shout out to Maggiacomo Insurance.
Totally.
House sponsor of Real Talk Rhody.
That's it. Now my dad has to Venmo me. So here's the thing. It's you wanna be careful. But at the same time, you know what? It's all in fun. It's all in fun. I'm loving to see who it's gonna be. I do love, and we can talk about the Dolores Catania of it
Of
all,
course we
because
can.
Dolo, like, obviously a titan, a legend in the Real Housewives universe, and she would be perfect. She would come in as like a Carolyn Manzo type of, like, the godmother of it all, hopefully, as
Yeah.
like kind of this touchstone for all of them, because from what I understand, they're all, from what we know, they're all pretty young.
Yeah, on the younger side as far as Real Housewives go,
For
right.
sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't know. It could be a total train wreck, or that's the thing. They need to be charming. Like, you can be a villain on TV but also still be charming. So as long as there's the charm, and right, we live in the most charming state in the country. Okay, I'm sorry. I am a Rhode Island stan, from my Cardi's furniture to my Dell's lemonade to my
Yep.
Caserta pizza to my
We got it all.
Dunkin'. We
Awful,
got it
awful.
all, right? We got it all. And I hope and pray that Andy Cohen and the powers that be at NBC and Bravo are like, no. We want to show, some culture in a state. And believe me, especially, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm Italian American.
You don't say. And wait, Matty, did you know that we have Italians in Rhode Island?
I did not know that. Are you kidding?
That blew the minds of
Mind blown.
Andy's doing these sort of little breadcrumb interviews right now.
Yeah, like The View, right?
The View. They were stunned. They were shocked. They were floored to even think that there were Italians that live in Rhode Island.
That's so funny. We have, obviously the listeners know this. It's like the highest concentration of Italian Americans and Italian immigrants from Italy, Southern Italy specifically, came to either New Jersey, New York, or Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And, and I love that history. Actually, not, it's too early to plug. I've been working on my first novel. Ooh. And believe me, I'll come on in a year and a half when it's published. And it's an immigrant story, and it has to do with it's loosely based on the history of my mother's family, and tragedy that ensued. Oh. And but it's an amazing history, which I'm not ready to let out of the bag just yet.
It's the origin story of Maggiacomo Insurance.
Actually, other side. So my mother's side. That Maggiacomo Insurance would be kind of boring. I got to be honest with you. And this kind of dealing with these themes of otherness, dealing with these themes of being in a country where you're not wanted, working every day, backbreaking work. My mother's family, actually, they all worked in the textile mills, which obviously we know New England was very famous for.
Yeah.
So the Wanskuck Mills, which is, it's still there. They're condos now. Mm-hmm. That was one of the largest worsted wool factories on the East Coast. And, it underwent all these stories that you hear, these crazy labor reforms, because the conditions were horrible. The young girls, my great aunts and my grandmother, they're all working in the textile mills. They were getting brown lung, because back then they didn't have, there was no HVAC system. Right. And, they were quite literally, what they would do is they would, kind of suck the needle through the shuttle, right? And the wool fibers and the cotton fibers would like go into their lungs. And so, thousands of young women died because, like, truly there was nobody like trying to protect them from any of these terrible conditions. And there's amazing Rhode Island history that I've been unearthing. And then you go into the Great Depression, and then like Rhode Island during the Great Depression era was unbelievable. It's way more interesting though what's going to happen on Rhode Island Housewives, I got to tell you.
I can see that like novel getting optioned by a Netflix or a Hulu or
that
something
would be
like
that. That would be the plan. That would be the plan. There's a lot more with that. But like I said, I'll come on at a later date and really show you what the nitty gritty of the story is. I love
a Rhode Island success story, and you already are one. So I'm looking forward to that. We're talking to Matty Maggiacomo from Peloton, and we're talking about Real Housewives of Rhode Island. I think when it comes to the cast members of who they choose issues. I think as long as they are their genuine selves, because if you think about the people that we've fallen in love with, and I always go back to Teresa. I always go back. I am physically here. Mentally, I am season 1, episode 1 of Real Housewives of New Jersey. Just because I feel like they were just so unapologetically themselves. I think after and Danielle Cabral kind of alluded to this last week. She's a current Real Housewives of New Jersey cast member on pause. And she was sort of like, after you do this for many years, you start producing yourself. And you can always tell when that sort of line starts to happen. I'm not saying who specifically that does happen to or does not. But I think as long as the women of Rhode Island, and if there's something I know about women of Rhode Island, they are always, most of the time, genuinely, unapologetically themselves. And I think as long as they stick to that and don't let the noise, like crowd into them too much, I think it's going to be successful.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that benefits the women who have like less exposure or experience with the camera.
Yeah.
Right? It goes one of two ways. The camera goes on and they immediately have a lobotomy and they like forget who they are and they don't know how to speak or act naturally. Or they do the other thing where they're like overproducing and,
coming up with phony things.
Totally. You're just very concerned with where the camera is. And yeah, I mean, and it's all in the casting. They have to actually be friends. I mean, there have been hundreds of reality shows that have been produced where, they're trying to make something out of nothing where like they're not actually friends. And that becomes very evident to the viewer immediately, especially if you're a reality TV connoisseur like we are. It's very clear. And it's very clear when the producers are overproducing.
Yeah. And I also think, well, for us, we have more at stake when it comes to watching it, being from here. So we can kind of snuff out who was actually genuinely friends. And if you follow, and I know that you've been following this since even before it was a Real Housewives of Rhode Island, because initially, and I talked about this last week, it was being told to me that it was not a Real Housewives. So I was hearing two different sides of the story. It was going to be possibly about, injectors that are very successful. They're Italian and they're big Italian families, or they were married to somebody who's very successful, sort of like a married to medicine. And so with Real Housewives of Rhode Island, then you start to sort of see, okay, you see where the lines are drawn. You see who's hanging out with who based on social media behavior. And you also start to notice the people who never really hung out before until they started actively doing TikToks and reels together. And I mean, again, I don't know. I know as much as you do or as much as others do. I don't know the producers well, but I imagine that when you start to construct a reality show, you tell your potential cast members, you say, guys, you got to start hanging out and you got to make it look like you hang out all the time. Right. Because the trolls of Reddit are going to start doing their research and they're going to want to see receipts. So make sure you do some content.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, God, those Reddit boards are interesting. And I don't know, you brought up the lip injectors and I don't know why, if you're not watching the video, I just felt the need to purse and duck my lips.
Yeah. It was beautifully done. No one does it quite like you.
Yeah, really. No, it's very true. You can smell the BS if it's not legitimate. I just hope that when they do the girls' trip, they go to Block Island.
I said that from the beginning. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great? But it has to be a certain Block Island. There's a few different sides to it. No disrespect to Block Island. But there's a certain Block Island that they need to go to, and maybe a certain Block Island they need to stay away from. Do they they have to take the fast ferry?
Or do
they fly?
They have to take the ferry, of course.
Like the regular ferry or the fast ferry?
Sail away on the Block Island ferry, damn it.
Are you going to enter the contest? Because the Block Island ferry folks are doing a contest where you sing the jingle.
That's amazing. I had no idea that was happening. And yeah, maybe I will. I have a free afternoon. Maybe I'll jingle it up.
Yeah, walk and talk, but it's make it Block Island. So cast trip, okay, I can definitely see them going to Block Island. And don't you love how once we get going here with Real Housewives of Rhode Island, the amount of people across the nation who are going to be like, wait a second, Rhode Island, that's not part of Long Island.
Long Island.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
if you saw this on I think it was Love Hotel, and
okay.
Giselle was talking to one of the guys from Rhode Island, and he's like, she goes, where are you from? And he said, Rhode Island. And she said, Connecticut?
Hysterical. We get no respect. We get no respect. You know, like you said in your kind of opening intro to what the impetus for Real Talk Rhody, it's Rhode Island is having a moment.
Mhm.
We have paid attention to when the national media or global media, if you will, pays attention to us, and we definitely harness every ounce of that attention, especially if it's good attention. And you know, we don't have that much to like brag about, so it's nice when we get something like, you know, I don't know, Hocus Pocus 2 came to town and everybody lost their freaking minds, right?
Yeah. Good Burger 2 came to town and everybody
And, you know, no shade to Peter and Lois Griffin, but you know, they're cartoon characters.
Yes. And was your entire newsfeed everyone taking a picture with Kenan Thompson?
Hysterical. My cousin, my aunt.
Yeah. Everyone. Matty, what do you think if they're going to hold anything? Because New Jersey classically did hands on hips. Now, what would you say? You could take it two ways. Either it's your prediction or your hope. If they were going to hold something, what do you want them to hold in the opening credit for Real Housewives of Rhode Island?
This is funny because I talked about this on Peloton just the other day because, excuse me, I was doing a little bit of like reconnaissance. So like, right, New York, they held an apple. Orange County, they held an orange. They don't always hold something, right?
Yeah,
like
Beverly Hills was a diamond.
Right. What was Salt Lake City? What did they hold in Salt Lake City?
Snowflakes.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. It's a quahog, but there's a pearl inside.
The quahog is not the most aesthetically pleasing looking thing.
Bekah, it's a clam. I'm sorry. It's a clam. It's a clam. Forget. Can I swear on this podcast? I'll say forget. Forget the Rhode Island red. It's not a rooster. The state bird of Rhode Island is a clam. I'm sorry.
So you want them to hold the clam, but the pearl is inside.
In a very Botticelli's Venus type of, the goddess is coming from the clam. I mean, aside from that, I guess it's like a slice of DiPetrillo's pizza.
I think so too. So it's either going to be, so we're going to go with the quahog with the pearl in it. And then how nautical do you think they're going to go? Do you think they lean fully into the beaches? With the stylistic, like, because I'm talking more about the like the promotion of it and the opening credits. I don't know why I'm so lost in the sauce about just the opening of it.
Imagery, right.
Yeah. Like, I'm wondering where they go with that.
Yeah, I know. It's true because, gosh, I mean, no shade to, you know, I'm from Northern Rhode Island and Smithfields and what, you know, it's like, we don't feel like we're beachy over there. I mean, you know, the strip malls of Johnston are not as scenic as what they got down there in Narragansett, right? And Scarborough Beach.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think just from it, I was a TV producer for a long time, so like, so from works. Aesthetically pleasing, yes, we're gonna see the Newport Bridge, and we're gonna see beautiful, you know, beautiful sun over the ocean, and that's definitely what it's gonna be. But I really think you're gonna see a lot of Cranston. I think you're gonna see a lot of Johnston. I think you know, and I think you're gonna see a lot of poolside stuff, especially if they're filming during the summer. Do we know if cameras are rolling? I heard they started rolling. Like,
okay, so what I've heard is June 23rd.
Okay, so that's like Pride weekend. Yeah, I heard it was like, oh, so the gays are immediately going to have representation with some of these ladies
I've
for sure.
I have
Yeah.
just from social media alone, I think that they will be well represented. Two things, because I don't want to forget about this. The first thing was when this thing was originally supposed to take off, they were going to film in like November or December, and I remember thinking, no, please
No,
wait until
too
the
gray.
summer. It's too
Too gray.
cold. It's
It's
too
too gray. When people are
yeah.
like Rhode Island, oh, Rhode Island's beautiful. I said, yeah, it's beautiful from like May to October.
Yeah, and then after that, it's like a face only a mother could love, right? It's not like Salt Lake City where,
For
of
sure.
course, you can film the winter over there. Okay, the other thing you mentioned was strip malls, and I wanted to get this out because it really annoys me when I see the comments that are like, "Well, where are they going to film?" Because one of the potential cast members has a business that happens to be in a Cranston strip mall
Okay.
or whatever, a shopping plaza. I
Sure.
don't know what we're
Strip,
calling.
just say strip mall.
Yeah, let's just call it what it is, right? And I get so upset because where else do you think the Real Housewives of other cities film? Like they film in places like that, and they're like, oh,
For
what are they
sure.
going to film in a strip mall? Of course they are. That's where the Real Housewives go. Like I always remember Jersey. I always go back to Jersey with this when it comes to Rhode Island because it's very similar, and they're already promoting it like that. I remember the salon they all went to was in a strip mall. Like, and I remember
Right.
specifically being like, oh, we could do that here. If that's what a Real Housewife does, we go to strip malls all the time. So enough of the hate against the
I
strip
think
mall.
the more obscure the places, I think you're gonna have the most. You'll have beautiful. They'll go to the beaches. They'll go to the whatever beach clubs or country clubs they can get into. But
That
you know
will
what I
allow
really
them.
want them to film a few scenes in? I want them
Where?
to film in the secret apartment in Providence Place Mall. If there's not a scene in the secret apartment in the Providence Place Mall, I don't want to watch this show.
We don't want it. We don't want it. If it's not in the secret apartment, then we don't want it. It's a legendary place. Maddie, what else do you want to see out of Real Housewives of Rhode Island as we wrap up here?
Again, just charm. And if we're gonna lean into the Italian of it all, give us some beautiful Italian American culture. Okay, so let's see the food. If we're gonna film from June through hopefully maybe into the holidays, maybe we want to see some Italian American holiday traditions. It'd be great if we could see some of the feasts, right? Like we're kind of very well known for our Italian American feasts. And maybe the thrill seeking comes from the girls hop on a carnival ride that hasn't been maintenanced in 3 years.
Whatever do you mean? Because when you said feast, I was thinking like, it goes back to Block Island. Like, well, what kind of feast do we want? What part of the feast do we want?
People don't realize, again, and they're going to learn, like most states have state fairs, right? Rhode Island doesn't really have, we don't have state fair. We have seafood festivals, right? So like, and it always boggles my mind that like there's some special like hell in like, okay, imagine going and eating like a lobster roll, some fried calamari, some steamers, and then you get on the tilt-a-whirl. Right? That's like
that.
that's a special flavor of vomit, Bekah.
You haven't really lived until you have some whole-bellied clams, clam cakes and chowder, and then you jump on the flume at Rocky Point. I mean, like that's what we do.
Correct. And then you just lose it all, and it's just full of regret.
It is. And last thing, I have to ask you about this. Outside of Rhode Island, there is a rumor about a Peloton personality joining Real Housewives of New York City. Is it you?
It's me. It's me, damn it. It's me. Bekah, it's so funny. I mean, that actually just popped up on my feed this week. And, some of my mom fans sent me the Reddit, and somebody had commented, plot twist, it's Matty Maggiacomo. And then the rest of the comments were actually very complimentary, I have to say. It was like, oh, I would totally start watching again. I said, thank you all. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. I'm not a housewife yet. Evan and I are getting married in October, and I can't wait to be a housewife, to be honest with you. But yeah, I am so lucky. Talk about Real Housewives, right? Like amazing cast and talent and whatnot. I am so lucky to have some of the coolest freaking coworkers, many who are my very close friends. You know, there are a lot of us, so like not everybody's a bestie, right? But we're all involved in each other's life.
Mhm.
But imagine you've got these like really prolific people who have these amazing careers and so many different things going on. Like half the time we learn about it like on the fly. Like Tunde Oyeneyin, who is just she if she wants to be the next Oprah, she's gonna be the next Oprah. I was like, wait, Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition? Are you kidding me? So sometimes I see it on social media, and then of course I get onto my phone and I text. I'm like, girl. So listen. I wouldn't be surprised. Now I will tell you, there's a certain level of, you know, we don't forget what our role here at Peloton is. And I'm not actually currently at Peloton. In fact, I'm sitting in my closet. But we're here to help people and make them feel better about themselves and reach goals and fall in love with fitness. And if we can entertain them in the process, great. Our job is we're good at our job. I could maybe see it happening, but it would have to be a very, it would have to be a very intentional reason and a very intentional person. I do not know who it could be. I do not know if there's even any validity to that rumor.
Right. And it has to be the right fit. And real quick, you said you're getting married in October. Are you getting married here in Rhode Island?
We're getting married here. We're going to do like a cookout at my parents' house, like a backyard barbecue, probably with steamers and lobsters and whatever.
Yeah,
But like, yeah. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it here. Because it's just easier. His family's from Rochester, so it's a little bit more of a meetup point over here in the city. And believe me, there will be plenty of Rhode Island vibing happening at my wedding for sure.
It's catered by Di Petrillo's, I heard.
Totally. They're gonna it's gonna be Caserta Pizzeria. We're gonna have Dell's Lemonade. What else? Italian grinders, of course.
Very well represented. Matty, I can't thank you enough. You know I could talk to you forever. And so obviously, when Real Housewives does make its debut, we're going to have you back on. When the paint is barely dry on the print, we're having you back.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming on Real Talk Rhody.
Thanks, Bekah.